Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Paragon Guide. I am Sylphin. This is the video a lot of you have been waiting on, damage versus ability penetration. This is just about ability penetration simply because the situations involving ability pen versus basic pen are a little bit different. I had to split them up and just talk about those kind of scenarios a little bit differently. So if you have ever thought, should I get ability pen on those ability focused heroes, this is the video for you. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Just like, before we get started, just like basic pen, I'm gonna ask you to do one thing for me, please. Please, just put aside all of your assumptions about damage and penetration. Put them aside and remain open to new ideas and new proofs and the math behind it, and stay open to what that really means. Please, 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 please keep an open mind and try to maybe accept the various statements that we're going to make, the various situations, and my various explanations of certain things here in this video. So guys, damage versus ability penetration. There's a few statements, some few facts that we really need to accept here in this video. Statement number one, all heroes have base armor of both kinds simply by leveling up. All heroes have 30.5 ability armor and 22 to 48 basic armor, depending on the hero. We're not worrying about basic armor, but every hero in the game has 30.5 ability armor by the time they are level 15. Okay, keep that in mind. Statement number two, while pen and damage are two different stats, they are both the same in the end. They're both the same in what they do. They both increase your damage. In different scenarios, they increase your damage, but they are both the same, basically, in what they do. They increase your damage. Please consider that damage and pen are basically the same thing. Because armor reduces all incoming damage of that kind, you need to consider that reduction that the enemy team has actually increases your damage. Yes, you could run all penetration and actually have a lot of damage. It is possible. The math says so. So just keep that in mind. Pen and damage are basically the same thing, just in different scenarios. Statement number three, the effective power on caster's basic attack is very small, due to the 0.3 scaling or less. I believe that is Bellica that has a 0.25 scaling for her basic attack. So keep that in mind. Power basically has an incredibly small effect on caster's basic attack. You get 30% of the value of power on your basic attack. It is very small, very small. Keep that in mind as we go on. It's basically negligible. To me, when I think about the whole situation that involves casters, their purpose, and what happens, basically negligible, but we will talk about that later. So this is a bit of a different kind of scenario that we find ourselves in. All of these numbers are not DPS. They're not damage per second. They are total damage for a certain ability against somebody with armor and certain levels of increased damage and ability pen. So here we have all of the casters here with their various abilities here that I've chosen to include pretty much all of the important ones, basically, but just so we can get an idea of how basic or ability penetration works. So we have their abilities here. We have the scaling of damage on those abilities. So for example, Bellica's Void Bomb gets, if you build 6 damage, her Void Bomb gets increased by 6 damage because it's a 1-to-1 scaling. Somebody like Void Drone, though, if you build 6 damage on Void Drone, Void Drone only gets 3 increased damage. So there is different scaling, which definitely totally changes the way that each of these abilities react with ability penetration. This is obviously the damage that these abilities do at level 15, and this is the total amount of CP's worth of value of damage, including fully upgraded bonuses, even including actives and passive passives on cards if you wanted to really be picky and do the math there and try to include those actives and passives in your total damage figures. This is total damage worths of CP's worth of value. CP's worth of value. Okay, it's not the cost to you, it's how much value you get at the end of the game with a full build. So here we have, this is what goes into the formula down here. This is what is kind of calculated. So right now we have Countess's Dark Tide in the batting cage, so to speak. Dark Tide, or up to bat, I guess, scaling with 1, she gets 1-1, and damage of 230. Now we are going to use Dark Tide on somebody that has armor of 30.5 for, all heroes have 30 ability armor. So this is against anybody. We're using Dark Tide on anybody that doesn't have any increased damage. Now, as we can see, when we go down here, we have damage on this side, the CP value of how much, the CP value of how much of the value of actual damage. So 10 CP of damage is 60 additional damage, and ability pen is increments of 2. And the CP's worth of value here going up. So 10 CP's worth of ability pen is actually 20 ability pen. And here we go. This is the damage that you can see here for Dark Tide against somebody with 30 armor. So as you can see, the trend is definitely in damage's favor here as we go up. So, out of 20 total, 20 total CP, 19 into damage and 1 into pen, we can see here that it's definitely trending to damage side. If we go down even more, we can see that 30 total CP though, 29 into damage and 1 into pen. Ooh, damage is staying the same, but actually increasing. So it looks like there is a point where the optimum DPS kind of does something like this. It kind of does something like this. That is the trend for Countess's Dark Tide. So we can see that if for Countess, if we're building 50 total points into damage or penetration, if we're going to have 50 total CP's worth of value into damage or penetration, then we need to go all the way down here and go 49 and 1 and see where that optimum DPS lies. More penetration, not DPS, sorry, this is total damage on this one ability. Total damage gets going up, it's continuing to go up, and now let's see if we are at 30 armor. 30 armor is actually right around here. So we can see that penetration for Countess's Dark Tide is actually better than damage once we have that solid base of about 30 or so CP worth of damage. So as you can see, if we're putting 50 total points of CP's worth of value into damage or penetration, including fully upgraded bonuses, we would want, against a target with 30 ability armor, which is every hero, we would want 35 CP total value of damage from all sources, upgrade bonuses and everything, and then 15 points of CP of value of ability pen, 30 pen. So we want to, for Countess's Dark Tide, with a total of 50 points of CP's worth of value of damage and penetration, we want 35 and 15. There we go. Now we can increase this and see if going up against somebody with a tank that has additional ability armor, what happens now against a target like that? Well, we have to do the process all over again. Again, 50 total points into damage or ability pen. We can go all the way down and go 49 and 1, and then we can follow this all the way up. Interesting. The total damage is actually increasing the more we go up. So the more we go up, the damage is actually increasing, meaning that Dark Tide against a hero with 60 ability armor, we actually want more penetration. And in fact, we haven't even finished negating the armor here, and look at that. 30 points of of penetration, a total of 60 ability penetration against that tank actually gives us the most damage, 350, versus if we didn't put any pen, it'd be 336. 360 versus 336. Hey, that's 30 extra damage just from carding smartly. So we can see there that damage was increasing. Now there is a point of diminishing returns where building more ability pen, even if somebody had that much ability armor, actually hurts us. Where because penetration is a weird percentage, it is a weird number that then affects a percentage total reduction of your damage on a certain hero. Because it's a percentage in the way that it kind of interacts, there is a point where building too much penetration, even if it is still penetrating armor, actually hurts us, where you would then actually want to build more damage just because you've kind of run out of the value of penetration, where penetration hits a point of diminishing returns. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if we do this process for each and every ability here for each of these casters, we find certain points of diminishing returns and something very interesting that I don't think you will expect. Now, here is the maximum amount of penetration you should put in terms of ability penetration on these casters for their abilities. Now, I simply had to say penetration, yes, because tweaking this armor one by one, checking the chart, would simply take me weeks to do. I simply had to say yes to penetration. There is a point of diminishing returns, and I think it's somewhere around like 70 total ability pen. It's about 70 total ability pen. I think that is where the kind of diminishing return point for any ability and any caster, I think that's where it is. But basically, if somebody has the armor for it, you can basically put all the points into pen and try it and basically negate it. Like if somebody has, 100 ability pen, you can put 100 ability pen and it would still give you the most damage. But I just said that I think that the actual ceiling is around 70, so I think it maxes out at about 70. So Countess, she loves her ability pen. Gadget, her Seek and Destroy, loves ability pen. Her Mind, though, that point of no return, that diminishing return point, is about 56 ability pen. Gideon, Burden, hates ability pen, but his Meteor, it's about 56. His Burden does absolutely no damage to begin with. Absolutely no damage, so you just really use it for a slow. So this, you basically can just forget about Burden and think about Meteor, which loves the ability pen, 56. And as you can see all the way down here, that a lot of abilities absolutely love ability pen here, with some, they reach their caps of about 60 to 56. The Fae, not so much. Her Nettles, that one, interestingly enough, caps out the diminishing return point for that ability is about 16 ability pen, but everything else loves ability pen. Her Alt and her Brambles love it. Her Growth there, 48 ability pen. It really likes the pen as well. So there you guys go. That is the point of no return, the diminishing return points for casters. Basically, ability pen is freaking awesome. They love it. Ability pen is amazing. So what are some conclusions then that we can draw from this math? Conclusion 1, the point of diminishing returns is almost impossible for most abilities to reach. Basically, it's greater than 56 pen. I think it's around 70 pen. I think the diminishing return point is about 70 pen. But it's basically impossible. Like, I don't think anybody would have that many upgrades to get 70 pen anyways. So I think it's pretty much impossible to get for most abilities. Again, there are some changes here, like the Phase and Nettles can only really use about 16 pen. But diminishing return point is pretty much impossible to reach. Conclusion 2. Ability pen only starts to be better than damage, however, after about the first 30 CP worth of power. So what that basically means is that as you start the game, pretty much all into power. And then by the end game, then you replace that penetration, then you replace that power with enough penetration you need in order to deal the damage on those critical heroes that you want to do. So basically build a lot of power, and then you switch into the appropriate ratio you need there for the end game when people have that high amount of base ability armor. Remember, all heroes, conclusion number 3, have 30 ability armor by level 15. So basically, you kind of start your build, once you're about 30 to 40, total CP, you try to get as much power as possible. But then by that point, you'll be, level 11, 12, 13. People will start to have that ability armor base to their hero to start to really climb. So then you kind of transition into a lot of penetration, because penetration, guys, is really, really good for these casters' abilities, so they really like it. Conclusion number 4. Any amount of ability pen is always, besides nettles and the diminishing return points, DRPs, derps, any amount of ability pen is always better for your abilities as long as it is penetrating armor. Okay? Any amount of ability penetration is always better for your abilities as long as it is penetrating armor and as long as you don't reach that diminishing return point. Okay? As long as you don't reach that diminishing return point, which, as we saw in conclusion 1, is basically impossible to reach. Okay? So basically, build as much ability pen as you can, basically, as long as it's penetrating armor. Conclusion number 5, the effect on caster's basic attack by focusing on caster's abilities via ability pen is near negligible at about 30 damage. The effect on caster's basic attack by focusing on caster's abilities via building an ability pen is near negligible, about 30 damage. To prove that to you here, if you want to, and I would absolutely recommend at least 30 ability pen, at least 30 ability pen for sure. 15 CP worth of ability pen is, could have been 90 damage, which in response is only 30 damage because of their scaling of 0.3. So you're basically losing 30 damage per basic attack for your caster. When casters total when casters total burst combinations are totaling thousands of damage, and you're worried about 30 for your basic attack, it is negligible. I'm sorry, it's basically negligible. To gain hundreds of damage, maybe even 1,000 extra damage just by focusing smartly on ability pen, and then you lose 30 per basic attack, I think that is absolutely worth it. The effect on caster's basic attack, about that losing 30 damage or so per basic attack, is basically negligible when you consider that casters' full abilities do thousands of damage. So there you guys go. That is ability pen. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. Hopefully you guys have learned stuff. Hopefully you guys can kind of understand where I'm coming from with these statements. Hopefully you can think of the whole situation as a whole and don't get stuck on, oh my god, I'm losing 30 on my basic attack. Oh my goodness. Think of the whole scenario. Think of these of these statements that we've made, the statements that we've proven, and then the conclusions that we draw from them. Ability pen is an absolute must. I would say if you're building a caster in the end game build and the end game, get that 30 ability penetration, because that's going to give you so much damage. That is 30% increased damage, basically. Because the enemy is basically reducing, no, I shouldn't say that. It's a lot. It's going to be a lot, so there you guys go. Hopefully this all makes sense. Hopefully you can go back, rewatch it if it doesn't make sense for you. Please like this video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, share it with the community, please, because so many people think that penetration is terrible, but the math says otherwise. The math says otherwise. Please subscribe if you like this content, found it useful. There's tons more. We have health versus armor coming out. We have health versus armor versus lifesteal coming out. If you are interested in any of that, please subscribe, because I would really like to help you out in the future. Till next time, ladies and gentlemen, like always, stay optimistic and positive.